It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Mike brings you great guests and interesting people from all across the globe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another great episode of the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look on a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/the Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, Deezer, Stitcher, and more. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with a wonderful author from New York City, and not only he's an author of over 20 books, including his latest 6 Days of Shadows, he's also a full-time university administrator. So he's one of those rare types that enjoys what he does, dual careers, and really, really puts a lot of passion to what he does. He's been doing it for quite some time. And live, ladies and gentlemen, from beautiful New York City, he's the author of 6 Days of Shadow and many, many books. And just coming out of the best, ladies and gentlemen, from the university, Edward J. McFadden III. Edward, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Sir, how are you? How are you, Mike? Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to have you on. So you're based out of New York City. You've been an author for quite some time. You have author of 20 books. You got the latest ones, 6 Days of Shadow. You also had Shadows of the Abyss, Sea Tremor, Shadows and Reflections, Primeval Valley, and a lot more. And you've got about 20 books in the works. We'll try to cover some of those. We'll get to your latest. And you're also a full-time university administrator. And before we get to all that, tell us how you got started in writing.
You know, I guess the bug got me with Tolkien. You know, I was one of those kids that just, you know, I think I was maybe 11 or 12, and you know, I wasn't a big reader. I was, you know, into other things, as most, you know, young boys are. But then I read The Lord of the Rings in 7th grade, and it really kind of bit me, and I kind of wanted to do that. That was like my first remembrance, my first inkling that I kind of thought, hey, I kind of want to do that. I want to make people feel that way. It was the first time I was kind of like, not upset, but, you know, yeah, I guess upset is the right word, that the story had ended, you know, and I felt good about it. I felt bad about it. I had never had an emotion like that with a book, you know, from a book before. So that was the initial thing that kind of planted the seed. And then over the years, there was many other things that slowly kind of led me that way. But it took me many years to get serious. You know, so from 12 till about, I didn't get serious till I was about 45. So there was a pretty big gap in there. Yeah, there's a pretty big gap in there.
That is amazing. You're also a full-time university administrator. And tell us where you teach, where you work at, and what do you do?
Yeah. So my other gig is I actually am not technically in New York City. I'm like right on the little outskirts there. I'm out on the island. And I work for Stony Brook University. I'm an assistant dean for the College of Arts and Sciences. I've worked there for, 20 plus years. And it's actually a very odd place to work right at the moment. You know, we can circle back to some of my apocalyptic work and how someone like me kind of is navigating this type of environment these days. But the university is particularly odd. Stony Brook is a university center here in New York, and we have 25,000 students on campus at any given time. And I am an essential employee because I'm a dean within the college, and we are actually still delivering all our classes every class that we started in January will finish, will complete. Every student who's supposed to graduate will graduate. But it's been quite a strain. It's taken a tremendous adjustment. And things have changed, just like in all our lives. I think things have changed at the university that will never change back. Some things are changing for the better, and they're going to stay that way. But it's very weird being on campus. I mean, there is nobody. I took some, it's like, to segue into the apocalyptic stuff, it's like, even during Christmas, I like working in between Christmas and New Year's because it's typically very quiet and I can get all different things done and there's nobody bothering me. But even then, there's a stray student. We have dormitories all over the campus, so there's always a stray student or two around or whatnot. But these days, it's like me. The joke I was telling my family yesterday, we did one of these distant Easter gatherings yesterday. And
I know how that goes.
In my in-laws' backyard, and I was joking with my brother-in-law that Thursday it had rained. I try and take a walk. I have to get out of the office now because now you're glued. I'm at work, but I'm actually glued to my screen more than ever before. So I have to get up and actually just, take a walk, and it was raining on Thursday, and I was walking around the building with my shirt off. Now, these are areas where there's normally, thousands of kids milling around and walking around, and there's just absolutely nobody. So it's very odd, and it's very different, once in a lifetime kind of thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody, I guess, right? Very rare type of situation.
It sounds interesting. You talk about the apocalypse, and tell us about how you got interested in it.
You know what? Basically, like everything I think with my writing, it ties back to some form of entertainment or enjoyment. I'm somewhat, I don't use the word scholar lightly because I work with and for real scholars, so I don't use that word lightly, but I'm somewhat of an apocalyptic literature scholar. I have read all the classics, Last Babylon, On the Beach, Earth Abides, all these very classical apocalyptic stories that were written in the 40s and 50s, and of course most of them were based on nuclear fear and the fallout of nuclear fear. And then the current generation. I have a book called Keepers of the Flame. It was supposed to be out. I was going to plug it on your show right now along with 6 Days of Shadows. It was supposed to be out about 45 days ago, and it's been essentially bumped. It's about the world ending and a virus that takes 14 days to get around the world. And, the publisher, I guess, decided that at this point in time, that's not really what, people are interested in reading. So they bumped it, and they bumped another one of my other books up the production chain. So they're going to release that instead. Mm-hmm. So it is changing how even publishers kind of look at things, and and how entertainment is how people are going to process this kind of entertainment in the future. It really worries me. What draws me to it, to take a long way around back to your question, I don't know. I guess there's something, like what draws you to horror, what draws you. I've never been into I'm not a blood and guts type of person, although my dinosaur thrillers and my sea thrillers do have a lot of, monsters and mayhem and stuff, because that's what those adventure books are kind of about. But when it came to my entertainment, I was never a Friday the 13th guy. I was never a Freddy Krueger guy. I was never, that wasn't really my thing. I think my horrors is, now I'm 50-something, I can say this, it sounds so deep. I think my horrors were a little bit deeper. I thought about what scared me a little bit more, and I think some of these apocalyptic concepts are incredibly scary, and the idea that a virus could spread all around the world before anybody even knows about it, which is essentially what this current bug has done. One of the many things that it's done with its long incubation period. It's very scary because if it had been something a little more dangerous, not to downplay the danger of the current situation, because it's a nasty bug, but think if it was just a little bit nastier, And it's like, I think people have behaved so well. I've been so proud of the folks. They've impressed me. I really didn't think here in New York on Long Island that people were going to, New Yorkers are known for going their own way. And I think the worry here, the governor's worry, everybody's worry was that the folks wouldn't take it seriously, but they really have. And as a result, the curve seems to be flattening down, and that's fantastic, and that's good. So it's working, right? It's one of those situations where we did what we were supposed to do, and hopefully it'll spare a lot of people. But it makes it a little difficult to enjoy and or write or read apocalyptic fiction in this kind of environment, because you're kind of living it to certain degree. When I take my walk on campus, I'm living it. There's nobody there. I feel like Ish, and Earth Abides. So it's eerie, and it's weird, eerie, and for a writer, it's actually not the end of the world. We don't mind being on our own. We don't mind being on our own. But but now every writer under the sun now has got, I got a great apocalyptic idea. So for the next 5 years, every publisher on the planet is going to be inundated with apocalyptic fiction. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes as a genre.
It's making me think of that movie. What was it? The Day America Died? What was it? On Memorial Day? And I remember it was where it's like the snow and ice was up to like the highway signs in New York City. And I think Will Smith was in one where he's like the only human there. What was it? I am Legend. I Am Legend. That's the name of it. It made me think of those two movies where it's like you're the only person out there, and it seems like we're living it right now, and it is kind of scary in a way.
Yeah, it is. And, and I Am Legend, I should have mentioned that. Richard Matheson, that's a classic, end of the world kind of story. I have a book called Awake, actually, that's out there. It's what caught on, kind of got me going a few years ago, and it's about Southern Florida is quarantined, and the virus is like our current, except a little nastier, and it was caused by a synthetic drug, not by by, I don't want to say natural means. We don't really know COVID if it was natural or not. I think it was, but who knows? So this has been explored, right? This idea of a disease, wiping out mankind. It's been done a million times. So I think that's what makes it even a little scarier. Like I feel like I've read this script. Yeah, you mentioned The Day After Tomorrow. You mentioned, there's so many movies you could kind of list, right, that have this idea, this concept. It was an old Twilight Zone episode way, way back, right, with The Last Man on Earth or whatever it was called. And they resonate with people for some reason. And, it resonates with people in different ways. Some people get very, very afraid, like my wife. She doesn't even like the little piece of plexiglass between her and the cashier at the grocery store.
Oh, because, my goodness. That's all over the place. They put even saran wrap between the two.
Yeah, it's just like, it's like some people are more, they connect on more of a level like that, and that little thing in between them is a barrier that they're not comfortable with. Personally, that kind of stuff doesn't bother me at all. Very early on, I told all my friends that have little kids, I said, this would, because they were like, the kids are going crazy. I said, no, it's very easy. Your house is a spaceship, outside is space, and your inside doormat is an airlock. And just pretend it's a game, and essentially that's what I do every day. I come in, I take my clothes off on the back, I hang them, I'm in my ship, right? So it's like, I feel like I am living some of these stories. It's quite odd.
It does sound quite odd, too. And, of course, with the pandemic that's been going on, and how long do you think it's going to be? And also, another question is, once this pandemic is gone, who knows how long that's going to last? Will we ever return to normal, or are we going to stay in this bubble where it's like we have to be inside, you have to be careful and everything? It's like, is it going to be where we're going to be careful permanently, or just go back to where we were before the pandemic hit?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and there's a cup half full and a cup half empty answer to that question, right? I'd like to think that, like New Yorkers and others around the country have stepped up and taken this seriously, that we will continue to. But Americans, I won't even say Americans, people have the attention span of gnats. And as soon as the danger you know how it is, man. And as soon as the danger disappears, we'll start to get slack again. However, I think that this did leave a permanent, mark. School is not in session here. I have a daughter who's a senior in high school, and she might not have her graduation, and she missed her senior year of playing golf, and she's missing all kinds of fun things. So it is having a real impact that I think people will remember, and I think that's the key to it, Mike. I think people have to this is one of these things that we kind of have to remember, so that it doesn't happen again, because I think this will happen again. And I think it was good that, and it's going to happen multiple times as more people around the planet start moving. These diseases are going to move, and it's inevitable that this is going to be, just like we have a bad hurricane every 5 or 10 years. Unfortunately, I believe this is the new norm. So there are certain things that will never go back. My prediction is, planes. I mean, everybody carries those stupid pillows that they don't use, those horseshoe pillows. I've carried mine all over the planet. I never use it. People are going to have fly masks now. Everybody's going to have a fly mask that they bring on the plane. I think that's a new norm just because of the uniqueness of a plane and the way the air is circulated. On campus, to bring it back to campus, we have a decent-sized Asian population, and I've been seeing, Asian students have been wearing masks on my campus for 20 years. It's a thing of respect. If they think they're sick, they wear a mask because their culture has been dealing with this. They have been dealing with this for much longer than us. And so they're much more prepared. As far as when this will end right now, I think it's going to be a couple more difficult months. And then on top of that, I think what you have is, there's a reason this is 19, right? It's COVID-19 because there was, 18, 17, and so, these things are alive. They're a virus. There's a P3 at the university, and all the professors do there is try and kill these things. Drug-resistant tuberculosis, all these bugs that have gotten around. I joke that it's like the tax code, the U.S. tax code. They make a law, we find our way around it. They put up 5 new walls, we find a way around those 5 walls. And it grows exponentially. And in a way, you're making the bugs stronger as you try and kill them. So that is also my worry. So maybe not 19 next year, but, what is the next bug going to be? When they have the vaccine and they knock 19 out, what's 20 going to be, or 25, or whatever the next one we hear about is. It's going to be stronger. I think that's a given. So some of these things we're learning now, these precautions, these permanent changes that are going to be made. My wife says, it's one way in the supermarket now, or the aisles. And you say to yourself, well, why the hell wasn't it always that way? And I think there's a lot of kind of things like that that are going to come out of this that are going to be good. So there's not going to be as many common colds, and there's not going to be many regular flus being passed around because of that plexiglass. We're finding out that supermarkets and some of these other areas are hot spots. Not that this is, not that we didn't know this before, but, it was like what you were saying at the beginning. Bird Hand kind of teaches best. Now that we've gone through this, and, this is not BS, folks. This is not, a fiction book. This is not I Am Legend. This is real. So I think it will stick with people, and, hopefully it will stick with people enough that we'll be able to keep these things under control as they do come across, because I think it's inevitable that they will continue to do so.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we'll keep up to date as well too on the apocalyptic matters as well too. We'll talk about your latest book, 6 Days of Shadows. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, and more. Take the Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with Edward McFadden, the author of 6 Days of Shadows here on the Mike Wagner Show. He also had written about 20 books or so, also full-time university administrator over at Stony Brook. And before we talk about your new book, 6 Days of Shadows, who are some of your favorite writers and authors growing up?
Yeah. I mean, aside from Tolkien, I mean, I think I was hit with the two classical guys very early, and I'm grateful for that. Tolkien and Poe. And I think pretty much everything I do, there's a little thread in them. And then I kind of went through this drought, of my teenage years and my early 20s where I really didn't read much. And then, then I came on and I discovered a lot of guys. I discovered Stephen King. I discovered Hyacinth. And then I think that's another thing about, I mean, I do tend to write pretty specific kind of things, but my influences are pretty wide. I mean, Ray Bradbury, Joe Haldeman. I mean, one of my favorite books is The Dark Tower by King. I think it's incredibly imaginative, and it's actually a good tie-in to 6 Days of Shadows because 6 Days is kind of like think of it like the Game of Thrones crossed with a little bit of Lord of the Rings because there's a quest element to it. But underlying it in this world is kind of this Dark Tower feel, and I don't know if you're familiar with Dark Tower, but essentially it was one of King's epic works, and it's kind of about a world that's deteriorated. Think of Earth like a few notches over, and it's kind of falling apart and deteriorated. You could call it post-apocalyptic almost. And it's one of his most interesting kind of settings, I believe, that he's done. So that's kind of the setting of 6 Days of Shadows, where it's, because there's magic involved, ultimately it's a fantasy. These people were given just enough to achieve a certain level, but then they can't kind of break through. So they have a certain, they can smelt metal, but they can't make complex devices. They've been intentionally kind of halted at this point where they've stagnated for a long period of time. So it's not like it's medieval like Game of Thrones, but it's also not science fiction. It's kind of caught, it's almost steampunkish. It's kind of caught in between there where I made it obvious that, this didn't happen naturally. For some reason, this was like stopped right at this point. And I think I got that from King, and also from my my mystery side. I'm a big Robert B. Parker guy, and I was also going back even further. Another kind of tangent I got off on earlier in my career is I was a magazine editor. I was a publisher. I did a lot of conventions, and I got a chance to meet a lot of famous people. I worked with Roger Zelazny, Elmore Leonard, some of these really big, Larry Niven, some of these big guys. And it was really a pleasure just being around them because it was just a different time. It was before social media and stuff. Like, I'm that old. I'm talking like, early 80s, mid 80s, when, there was actually a small press and we printed things, there was stickers and stuff like that. And, I had to go pick the stuff up at the mail, at the post office and all that kind of fun stuff. But I actually got to meet some of these people and actually speak to them. I'm looking at a bookshelf right now, and there's a book right on it right now that I'm holding that was hand-corrected by Algis Budrys, who was a famous science fiction writer of the 50s.
Wow.
I brought it up to him, and I said, can you sign this for me? And he got all pissed off, and he actually went through it, and he hand-corrected the 16 mistakes that were Malcolmides. It's actually called Malcolmides. Yeah. So there's some really cool stories, and unfortunately I got to meet a few of these folks that I consider icons, and that was really fortunate because I don't think that happens anymore. I think the convention circuit has kind of really died down for a variety of reasons, or maybe not died down, but morphed. It's more media now, and games and movies, and the literature side of it has fallen off somewhat. But it's coming back with audiobooks. And that, unfortunately, the audiobook, as we talk, the audiobook for 6 Days of Shadows isn't out yet, but it will be. So if you're listening to this, folks, and audiobooks are your thing, just give it a little time, another month or so, and it should be out. Everything's just been so delayed because of the current scene. But I'm kind of an audiobook guy. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard of Whisper Sync. It's this thing that Amazon has so you can buy the ebook and the audiobook, and it connects them. So it's like I can listen to a chapter in my car, and then I can come home and I can read a chapter on my phone. I can listen to a chapter at night before I go to bed, and it keeps everything synced. And to me, that I think is the future of the written word, making it easy for people to use time that they consider wasted. I mean, so you could listen to the same song in the car again on your way to work, or you can listen to a chapter in a book. And I think that's kind of the future of my entertainment, books, is audio. It's a high growth market. That's one of the things that Beacon does really well. The folks who published 6 Days, they have a nice big audio division, and that's really important to me because I want to make sure I have growth in that area, because it's definitely 40% a year growth. It's a big growth area. Tantor Audio, which is recorded books, bought a novel of mine last year, Throwback, and it's done really well. I mean, with each little thing, and it's not just making the little money too, it's also, having people actually read the books, and that's a thrill for me. There's so much noise out there. It's very difficult to break through, and, now, you got hundreds of reviews and hundreds of likes on your books and stuff. You start to see people actually reading them and enjoying them. To me, that's the most important thing. Unless you're very, 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 very lucky, you're not going to get rich being an author, right? All the spoils goes to the top 1%. It's got nothing to do with skill. It's got nothing to do with story. It's got nothing to do with how hard you work. You get to a certain point in it, and it's luck. And I think many, many writers go their whole life basically living at the poverty level. And I had some very, very close friends that were in that boat. So I can tell you, there's guys and gals who win awards and they still have a tough time making rent. And there's something wrong with that. Somebody said it, I saw a meme or something, with all this going on, everybody said, the meme was, or the saying was, hey, when this is all over, don't forget, in the heart of it all, when you were most upset, you turn to entertainment. Don't forget that, because everybody always wants stuff for free. They want the book for free. They want the movie for free. Free. Who gets stuff for free, man? I don't get anything for free. So I hope people will remember that, when they went through this tough time, these books, these films, Netflix, they got you through. And pay the folks. It's hard work.
And it sounds like you're doing. It sounds like you're doing a really good job of it as well, too. How you look ahead when it comes to time and everything else. And you talk about Netflix and some of those social media. Are there any of your books that are in the process of being, like, say, on Netflix, Hulu, or like a web series, or even on YouTube? Maybe as turned into some kind of movie or like a miniseries.
Man, from your lips to somebody's ears, man. Yeah, no, unfortunately, no. And it's like, with each step, and it's to even call them steps is like not right. With each like inch that I crawl, because that's what this industry feels like. And in your industry is no different. It took you years to get where you are, right? And you crawled inch by inch. And writing books is really no different. It's inch by inch. There is no overnight success, or it's very, very rare. The guy who wrote Bird Box had a bunch of books before that. You never heard of him. George R. Martin wrote the first, Game of Thrones back in like the 80s or something. Nobody heard of it until it was on HBO.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah. I mean, so it's like, there's an element to all this that, I just put my nose down, and I try and do my work, and I try and get it done, and I try and do I split myself even further than, you mentioned at the beginning, the professional career and then the second professional career. Well, the second professional career, the writing career, I even split further, right? So I do these contract books, these adventure contract books, which tend to sell very well. And then I have, my For the Love books that I try and get out there that have a much broader appeal, that, maybe don't hit the genre-specific nail exactly on the head. Those are a lot harder to sell. You got to find guys like Bobby at Beacon Publishing who are really looking for something different. they're looking for the opposite of what my contract publisher is looking for. My contract publisher wants me to write that to genre. They want X, Y, and Z to happen. To describe it, I'll tell you a funny story. So there was a writer. He passed away a few years ago. His name was Ed Gorman. He was a big writer. He was a New York Times bestseller. Really, really nice guy. When he was, early on in his career, he was in advertising. He retired. He was writing full time, so he was like semi-retirement. But he needed money. And one of the first professional jobs he took was contract writing for a Western. But it was Western kind of like pornography. It was one of these like romance Westerns where there had to be sex and other things.
Mm-hmm.
So, he got this long outline, right? And this has to happen, that has to happen. So he said to me, Ed, what you do is you can make any story your own. So you figure out the story you want to tell, and then you lay it over whatever the genre is. So even with these contract books, although I say they're not, for the love, I find a way to get my story in there. And as you go through and you read what people say about them, that's what makes me smile, because most of the people say, yeah, this is different than the typical, sea monster book or the typical dinosaur book. And that's cool to me. So trying to take these themes, stay on target, right? Stay on genre, because we want to sell books. We got to sell books. Otherwise, they won't publish my books, and yet still make it different enough and new enough that it kind of sparkles a little bit. And I'm at the point now that that's kind of what I'm trying to do. No movie breaks. I have a crime novel that I wrote, Quicksands, which I'm shopping around. It's kind of like Reacher meets Repairman Jack. It's really neat. But it's a totally new genre. And, so you mentioned all these other things I've accomplished, all these other little inches I've crawled. In the crime genre, I'm nothing. I got to start over again, just like some dude who, wrote his first word.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough. So you keep your nose to the grindstone, just like you do.
Mm-hmm. And you're doing a great job of it as well, too. You talked about crime novels, also sea monsters, and abyss, and also apocalyptic. And any chance of a possible novel about time travel?
Oh, let's see. Do I have time travel in there? I love time travel. I have a novella that I wrote years ago called Anywhere But Here, which is all about time travel. I think you can still get that audio book. I'm trying to think if I have a bunch of short stories. I love time travel stuff. I love time manipulation stuff. I love any story that messes with time, that makes you think about time in a different way. It's just really hard. It's really hard to execute. So like, I'll have a lot of cool, like, time related ideas. And then I'm like, you know what? It's kind of hard to execute. And the more complicated a story gets, the narrower your market gets. So it's like a lot of times I have to start shaving things off. And time travel, you can't do that. When you're messing with time travel, you have to kind of keep everything in order. You have to be really specific and really precise. It's kind of like a certain kind of reader, too. Casual readers don't want to think all that much. Time travel, we're not talking, Back to the Future here either. I mean,
right.
Clearly it could be a very simple thing. And of course, now it's coming to mind. Throwback, right? Okay, I wrote Throwback, a couple of years ago. That's the one that was bought by Recorded Books. It's one of my bestseller books, and it's about astronauts in the International Space Station, and a space cloud kind of blows through the solar system, and it sends them back in time to the Cretaceous period. And they romp around with dinosaurs. And there's a whole bunch of other things that happen, but the basis of the whole kind of story is time travel. Time travel lets you do all this neat stuff. I mean, Planet of the Apes. I mean, what is cooler than Planet of the Apes? I mean, is there a cooler story than Planet of the Apes ever? So it's just so much you can do with time travel. I love it, and I definitely see myself doing, and actually now I think about it, there's a little bit of time travel in Our Dying Land also. So I have kind of dabbled with it. I've never had it be the primary focus of a novel, but you know what? I would really love to. I think, down the road, as I grow, that's kind of the other thing. I'm still growing in this. It's like one of those things where every time, Marion Zimmer Bradley, I don't know if you've ever heard that name. She said once to me, she said, you know, everything you write you think should be the best thing. If that's not the case, then you're doing something wrong. So just like anything, like your show, right? You want every show you do, this one should be better than the one before. At least that's your goal, right? So that you're always getting better, you're always moving forward. So as I get better and as I progress, I think I'll be able to tackle some of these more complex issues in a more competent way. It's just like I just got a novel back, Drop Off, a sea thriller that'll be out next year from one of my beta readers. And he said, you know what, man, the main character is always a guy. Why don't you try and make it a female for once? Yeah. And it's like, you know, that's so easy for just, you know, some editor to say, right? And it's like, you know, I'm not going to lie. I don't know if I could pull that off. I always put strong female characters in my books. I'm always very diverse. I go out of my way to make sure I am, but that doesn't mean I can write an African American character from a POV, you know, from their POV or from a woman's POV. I do my best to tell the story of these people through a male's eyes because that's how I see it. But I just, you know, like time travel, I just don't know that I have the chops yet to really do a great job writing from a female perspective. I just, you know, I'm not confident enough to give it a go yet.
And of course, we'll talk more about that and some other ventures. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@SonicWebStudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, and more. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with author Edward McFadden here on the Mike Wagner Show, the author of 6 Days of Shadows, which is currently out right now. He also wrote Shadow of the Abyss, Sea Tremors, Primeval Valley, and also Throwback, as we discussed. That's part of Beacon Books as well, too. And let's talk about Primeval Valley as well, too, as a follow-up to Throwback. And maybe you can tell us about that one, since Throwback was your practically your bestseller.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, and you know, the one before that, The Breach, which was a sea thing, and I'm gonna, you know, I Primeval Valley is kind of like one of those books that sold really well, and I was worried about it, so you know, I want to circle back to that. But The Breach, which was my first sea thriller that I did for Severed, was actually #1 Amazon bestseller recently. It was awesome. They did a promotion, and there was a sale, and you know, for a couple of glorious days, I was, you know, up there above Stephen King on the bestsellers. But Primeval Valley, so you know, there's 2 tracks on the adventure side. So like what Beacon does, 6 Days of Shadow, that's kind of just a fantasy, straight fantasy kind of novel. These other things I do are 2 kind of very specific tracks. It's called SF Adventure, and the monster has to be dinosaurs, so they're very dinosaur centric. The sea thrillers I do can be pretty much anything that I want, but it's got to have some type of sea monster or some type of monster involved in it. On the dinosaur side, I do, even within that, I do a couple of different tracks. And one is kind of my science fiction track, and that was Throwback. And I have 2 more books coming out in that track. One is Jurassic Ark, which is, again, that's the one that was bumped over the apocalyptic book. So that should be out pretty much any day. And I am in the middle of just finishing up a book right now called Jurassic Red. And these are in the vein of Throwback, where they have very heavy science fiction elements, and the monsters are dinosaurs. And then there's this other kind of dinosaur track, which they call Lost World. And it's kind of based on that novel, you know, on Conan Doyle's The Lost World, right? They went to the Great Plateau and they saw dinosaurs, you know, and that was, of course, back in the 30s or whatever. So getting to these lost worlds in reasonable ways is a little more difficult now, than it was back then. Every inch of the earth has been pretty much explored. So finding new ways and hidden nooks and this and that. And that's pretty much what Primeval Valley is about. It's about a boy who's taken by a Velociraptor in the mountains of Colorado. And his father, of course, freaks out and goes on a hunt looking for him. And they find this small valley that had been covered by an ice sheet, that had a thermal vent, all these once-in-a-lifetime kind of occurrences that allowed this ecosystem to survive for a lengthy period of time. And it's about this father as he goes on this desperate journey to kind of find his son. A lot of these things, I don't know how old you are, Mike, but, all this stuff for me, or a lot of it comes from Land of the Lost. I don't know if you remember.
I remember Land of the Lost. Yes, that was fantastic. Yes, that's right.
Right, so now that to me.
Or what was that? It had Wesley Urick, Kathy Coleman, and I think it had, I'm trying to think of the Karate Kid, and I can't think of the name. So
yeah,
I remember
watching. You're better
it.
than me. You're better than me with the names. That's pretty good. I would have never gotten those names.
And actually,
but I can sing the song.
And actually, I had those three on the on my show as well too, with Wesley Ure and also Kathy Coleman, and called Shaka as well too. So I have to look at the name on that, and it was just amazing, just what they did. And look back, it's like, whoa, what a piece of work.
That's so funny. My daughter's nickname was Chaka for like the first couple of years of her life because I forced her to kind of watch some of these things because I knew that, she would never see them otherwise. And, it was really amazing going back and watching those old episodes with her, when I was, this is 10, 15 years ago now, so I was maybe 40 at the time. And it had been, quite a while since I had seen them, and man, they were still as much fun. And that's kind of the essence of a Lost World story, Land of the Lost, this place where it doesn't make any sense that it exists, but it does, and all this cool stuff happened, and there's tons of people that love this stuff. And I try and lay my story over it. So I decide what kind of story I'm going to tell. And, a science fiction story is a story told in a strange place. That's all. It's the same story that you're going to tell anywhere else. It's just told in a strange place. Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of these things are about, right? The setting really comes through. And you hide the fact that you just told a romance, for example. But, it's Dino SF, but it's really a romance story when you dig down. And I think those multiple layers in the stories have why I've been successful in those really specific genres, because I just don't give them 80,000 words of, shooting and fighting. I give them a real story in between, the shooting and fighting. And I think, people, whether they realize it or not, they tune into that. So, I think that's one of the reasons why Primeval Valley has done as well. But why I was nervous about it, because I didn't think, I always struggle with originality. And I think, any artist yourself, the show that you do, you're always looking for a way to be original, to be a little different, to put a new spin on something you've done 1,000 times. And, there's been 1,000 Lost World books, it's been done 1,000 times. So it's kind of daunting to think about, who the hell am I that I'm going to put a new spin on something that's been done that many times. So it can be daunting, but it's like anything else. Once you start telling your story and you get in the flow, you can give two writers the same outline and you're going to get two totally different books.
Mm-hmm. And also another question that popped up on my head is that what precisely got you interested in sea monsters and dinosaurs?
Yeah, so again, it was kind of a practical decision for me. I write in some of the other areas because I enjoy that. And then about, 3 years ago when I sold Awake to Severed Press, it did okay. It didn't do great. It wasn't exactly, they do zombie books, and Awake's not really a zombie book. It's more like I Am Legend. But they wrote me back and they said, look, this thing didn't do great, but you know what? We really like your writing. You're really good. Send us some proposals. And I started taking a look at some of the niche genres that they work in. And I chose Sea Monsters because I always loved that kind of stuff. I mean, Land of the Lost, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters was cool too. The Croft brothers, right? Same show, same production, folks. But I'm also a guy. I live, like I said, I'm right outside the city, but I'm really on an island. I live on Long Island, and I've spent my entire life on the Great South Bay. So I was able to slip into writing these sea thrillers, very, very easily because I'm out on the bay. I know boats. I know these kind of things. And then on the dinosaur side, I was able to use, again, I kind of honed in because of Severed and their niche markets. And then I took my science fiction background that I was telling you about, and I kind of brought that to bear on the dino thriller thing. So that's how I kind of got into those two niches. And then it just becomes every time I write one, I'm just trying to be better every time. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping every time they get a little better and they get a little different. And the underlying stories to them are all different. It's just, they all have a few common things. It's like any genre piece, that has specific elements that have to be there. Otherwise, it's, not part of that genre.
Mm-hmm. Exactly it. And also, you'll have your two books, Sea Tremors and Shadow of the Abyss, involving sea monsters, and quickly tell about those.
Yeah. So, so my first three were all kind of cataclysmic based. So the Breach hurricane dragged the sea monster in Shadows of the, and that was here on Long Island, the only book I've ever set where I live. And I said, man, I want to do this better. So my second one was Shadow of the Abyss. A tsunami drags in the sea monster in that one, and that character is much more interesting. The character in the Breach is a Marine police officer. The lead character in Shadow of the Abyss is a guy named Splinter, and he's an ex-military guy living off the grid, kind of like a darkish Reacher kind of guy. And he works on a charter boat and then, goes after the monster. The third and last one in the kind of storm related is Sea Tremors, and that one's an earthquake, a fictional town in California, and the earthquake kind of shifts the land and cracks the crust, and a Goliath octopus type, squid type mutant comes up and tries to take out the town there. So that was those three. My next three are all going to be different. My one due out this year is called Drop Off, and it's set at the edge of the Blake Plateau out here in the Atlantic Ocean, where the water gets really deep, goes from about 300 feet to, pretty much all the way down to Challenger Deep, which is way, way down. And it's about a die-off, and there's a marine station, a collection of boats that have kind of created a base to study the die-off. And, of course, we have mutant sea creatures that come up and attack the base, and that's what the story's about, and about the people who lived through it. And I'm not really sure what my next two are going to be about yet. I have a bunch on the board, and when I turn one in, I normally write a proposal and get the contract for the next one. So when I turn in Drop Off in a few months, I'll crank out another proposal, and that'll be what happens. But that's the plan.
Sounds great. Okay, we're looking forward to that. Once again, Edward McFadden, author of 6 Days of Shadows and More, here on the Mike Wagner Show, part of Beacon Books. A big thank you very much for your time. You've been fantastic. Looking forward to having you again soon. You've been fantastic. Just a couple of things. Who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
Biggest influence in my career? God, that's a tough one. I guess I got to say Tolkien, just because, he started me off. And, I'm 51, so this was before there was movies and before everybody, was on lunchboxes and stuff. So I'm kind of a little embarrassed. But I also got to throw Stephen King in there. You take the formality of Tolkien in the loose way that King writes, and I think my style falls somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Wow. Yeah. There's nice advice, which is what I said kind of to you at the beginning, which is, keep your head to the grindstone, keep pushing away. And not so nice advice would be, if it were me talking to my 20-year-old self, I would tell myself to explore other avenues of creativity, maybe film, voice, something else, because unfortunately the printed word, is in for some rough times. The millennials, my daughter's generation, the younger generation, they're much more triggered by media, by sound, by visual, even more so than you and I were. And, we were children of the TV, generation, right? And our parents called us, we were glued to the box and our Ataris. These kids are much more. So, like I said before, I think the real future of storytelling, at least in my line of work, is the audio books. So my hope is they continue to progress and get more advanced. And, there's these graphic novels, too, which seem to kind of worm through the middle. They're comic books, but they have a lot more words. I haven't read one. I haven't written one. But I think these types of things that kind of cross some of traditional lines into the new media are going to be successful in the future. And that's my challenge, to kind of bend myself to try and do some of these new things, as well as write books, old school style.
Mm-hmm. And looking forward to what you have as well, too. Once again, Edward McFadden, the author of 6 Days of Shadows, here on the Mike Wagner Show, published by Beacon Books. Edward, a big thank you for your time. You've been fantastic. Looking forward to having you again soon. And once again, tell us about your upcoming projects. What's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase your books?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me on, Mike. This type of opportunity, is fantastic. Getting the word out on any project these days is so difficult. And, having a platform such as yours is definitely helpful, and I look forward to being back. Hope I didn't get off on too many tangents. The easiest way, I think, to contact me, the Beacon website, www.beaconpublishing.com, has the current book, 6 Days of Shadows. You can always run right to Amazon.com. They pretty much have everything, and you can kind of even dig way back into my history and get some of the magazines I edited and some of the stuff I did in the 80s and 90s, which is fun to take a look at. And the ever-popular www.edwardmcfadden.com, which takes you right to the center of the action. Thank you again, Mike. I really appreciate it.
That is fantastic. Ed, again, a big thank you for your time. You've been fantastic. Looking forward to having you again soon. Do us a favor, keep us up to date. Love to have you back on 2020. You've been fantastic.
Great. Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and themikewagnershow.com. Please support our program with your donations at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again next time for another great episode of The Mike Wagner Show.